Hi, I'm Mark DeMoss, pastor of the Mosaic Church of Central Arkansas, right here in Little Rock. I'm joined today by my good friend of many, many years. We won't tell you how long, Amos Gray. He's the student ministries pastor at Mosaic and also the founder of HIM Ministries in Hot Springs, doing a tremendous work amongst young people there. And Amos, we're here in Pankey today. As you know, it's February, Black History Month. And Pankey is a unique, historic neighborhood here in West Little Rock. And I thought it might be good for the folks to get a little sense of the history because we're literally sitting outside of the house that you grew up in.
Yeah, man, Pankey's been here for over 100 years. I mean, in 1907, Josephine and her husband Solomon, they bought 80 acres in West Little Rock here to begin to develop a community for African American folks. And it began with a small group of folks who started buying land. But then in 1927, we began to see more and more African Americans buy up property, and she would just sell property for whatever the people could give. So if they could give, $100 or whatever they would give, some people would give produce to her so that they could own land here in West Little Rock. She was she was the first African American female realtor in the state.
So the development of Pankey goes back to that time. And I know West Little Rock was very much woods and country at that point, I imagine.
Yeah. So yeah, everything in this area was just woods, and Highway 10 was just a 2-lane road, and there was Pankey, and then you would get out further, you get to Taylor Loop. And then of course, when they developed Pinnacle Valley, it was that area there. So, yeah. So
what about your family? You came to live here in Pankey. I guess, was it your mother or perhaps grandparents? And ultimately you grew up in this house that we're sitting out in front of?
Yeah. So this is the Tinsley house. And so my mom, I think she moved out this area in the 50s and built here. She built this herself and her brothers. Some of the things I remember was her always fighting for the community and wanting to get the city to come out this way. She fought to get, running water. She fought to get trash picked up, So I think mom is part of the reason why we have the city in this area.
But folks, and particularly African Americans and in the South, not just Little Rock, but in the South, had to be enterprising, had to be entrepreneurial just to survive, let alone to thrive.
Absolutely. You had to use what you knew. And a lot of that enterprise and entrepreneurship was handed down from grandfather to father to son.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I imagine the feeling, the pride, going all the way back to Josephine Pankey, a place that African Americans could, in a sense, call their own. At that time. I imagine that was what was happening. And you grew up here, as we said. What is the feeling coming back to Pankey at this moment? As you think about it and the other folks that grew up here like you, when you pass Pankey up and down Highway 10 or even coming back here, I know your family still lives in this house, but help us understand some of the feelings, the emotions that you may have looking back at the history of this area, your own history here. Give us a sense of what that feels like.
At 18, I moved away and I was gone for 20 years, man. And that's one thing that I remember her looking at me in the face and said, boy, you're going into the world, but home will always be home. This house will always be here for you. And so whenever I come to Pankey or just drive through or even just come to the church, I try to make it a point to try to get out here and to just have that feeling of this is home.
So Amos, we're standing out of First Baptist Church here in Pankey. And I know this too is part of the history of Pankey and this church. Tell us a little bit about the church.
Man, this is kind of like the meeting place for a lot of families in Pankey, especially growing up. If there was a meeting, a community meeting, whatever, mom would always bring us down here and we'd have to sit down and be quiet and stuff. But for me, man, I mean, it's been a place, I think, where I felt like I really began to discover who Jesus was, I was baptized in this church. I sang in the choir in this church. God did a lot of great things with me in the church. But the biggest thing that I remember, it was the relationships of people. I believe that there have been some of the greatest athletes in the state have come out of this area. Some of the great educators, Frederick Love, he came out of this area. He's now one of our state representatives,
Yeah, and Michael Tinsley.
Michael Tinsley, my nephew. Yeah, he grew up in this home too.
Yeah.
And so we have great pride and great family, man. Family. It was a day when you couldn't walk down the street and some adult said, "Hey, your mama know where you at?" You know what I'm saying? This is home. This is our property. This is our land, and we need to keep it going. And of course, our journeys are our journeys. And, I moved away and I wasn't that connected with church, but I always remembered First Baptist. And so now as a man, I look at the church and I go, this is the place where we have to develop the next generation. Their life is so much greater than what they expect. And no one can teach them that but Jesus. Jesus can teach them that their life will impact generations. And so at Mosaic, that's my heart. Is to take the students that we have and develop them to be, that old saying, world changers, difference makers. That's my heart. That's my passion. And that's what we can look forward to in the upcoming months, years to come.
Well, thanks again for sharing your history, bro. Thank you. Love you a lot.
Love you too.